All right, good afternoon, sirs, freighters, companions, brothers alike. Today we're really gonna dive into some content. Like I was telling the brothers before a few of you got on here. As I was putting this together and as I was thinking about this, because it's the Knights of Malta. This is one of the shortest degrees in the Templar series. And just because it's short, the impact is not short. The impact is profound. And as I was putting metaphorical pen to paper and getting data and doing some research, um, it was really impactful. It impacted me in a way. But let's start like this. Here's a quote from Kobe Bryant that will segue us into this lecture. All right. Sometimes your value isn't seen until your absence is felt. Now, I want you to think about that. Sometimes your value isn't seen until your absence is felt. And as we think about this degree symbolizes the five significant periods of life, right? Birth, life, death, resurrection, and then ascension. And we think about the life of Yahweh Shai, aka Jesus. This degree specifically, the middle order of this degree as a whole, and the trilogy of the Knights Templars order in this degree, this really is kind of pivoting off the Knights of St. Paul. This is what the degree was originally fashioned, the Knights of St. Paul, the Knights Hospitaller. There was a couple different variations of what it was called of the Mediterranean Pass, right? Mediterranean Pass. And the Order of Malta itself, this is the first of the two Christian degrees of the York Rite, introduces the candidate to the foundation of both Christian, being a Christian, and then that of being a Christian knighthood, which two distinctly different things, or one and the same in most circles, right? The Knights of Malta were not initially connected to the Knights Templar, but were rival monistic orders of fighting monks. The Knights of Malta predated the Templars actually by 72 years. They were founded in the Holy Land to care for the wounded knights who were fighting in the Crusades, calling themselves the Knights Hospitallers. And that will segue us into our lecture. Now, what is the meaning of this actual degree? This degree is universally associated with the Masonic Knights Templars in the York Rite system. It was conferred or is conferred before the Templar degree. So typically this falls ahead of that degree, the Knights Templar degree, and it's a standalone in tradition. It's conferred subsequently to the Templar degree. It is known by varying degrees of formalities as the Order of Malta. It's also known by the Order of Knights of Malta or the ancient Masonic Order of St. John of Jerusalem, Palestine, Rhodes, and Malta. So it has a couple different connotations in how it can be referred to and how it is referred to in different countries. But as we look at it in practice, in the last and the fullest version, the name tends to be reserved to letterheads, rituals, and formal documents. In other words, the name of this degree varies in various countries and various jurisdictions, mostly countries. Now, the Malta is an archipelago, which is just an island with just a couple different islands connected, or a few different islands connected, or a group of islands. That's an archipelago. It's just a different group of islands that are connected. So Malta is that. It's connected to a few different islands in the southern Mediterranean Sea. The Republic of Malta consists of three occupied islands: that of Malta itself, Gaza, and Comino. Right, Malta is one of the largest of the three islands and has a rugged coastline with many bays, coves, harbors, creeks, bunch of sandy beaches, and therefore no mountains or rivers. And consequently, my actual sword, my Knights Templar sword, was consecrated in Malta. My wife actually gave me that as a gift when we started dating about 15 years ago. So it's really near and dear to my heart. Now, the actual symbol, the Maltese cross, takes on a few different connotations, but let's look at the left side first. It really is an ode to the eight beatitudes of Yahweh Shai, aka Jesus, right? And that can be found in Matthew 5:3-12. But we also look at some of the metaphorical meanings, right? The 8 points of the actual Maltese cross denotes loyalty, piety, frankness, bravery, glory, honor, contempt of death, helpfulness toward the poor and the sick, and then the respect for the church, right? But it really alludes to a couple other different things too, like the boat in the storm. When we look at the story of Jesus in the Bible, trust in God, have no fear. Again, we talked about the eight beatitudes, but it also those 8 points also allude to the eight oldest languages, which are Hebrew, Tamil, Sanskrit, Greek, Mandarin Chinese, Arabic, Basque, and Navajo. So it actually alludes to the eight oldest languages as well. So that those 8 points have a few different connotations, but also it is considered a five-pointed star, which we'll talk about later. Uh, Dr. Abernathy, good, bad, or indifferent, however you feel about him, noted that the Masonic Altar of the 19th century, they were all opposed, flat out just opposed to including the Order of Malta in the Templar ritual, recognizes its historical inaccuracies. Now, like I said in the first slide, Malta, the Knights of Malta predated Knights Templar by 72 years. So it was they were already kind of had their own thing, and there was already kind of some distinction and some beef, if you will, between them and the Knights of Hospitallers, right? But the Grand Encampment followed Mackey's suggestion and dropped the United States Grand Encampment formed in 1805, ordered in 1856, and then they restored it. So they dropped it essentially, but then they restored it in 1862. Okay. Every Templar that goes through this degree, and every Templar henceforth and before, all Templars are required to wear the Maltese cross jewel in their uniform. This uniform, actually, as you can see listed here, consists of an eight-pointed cross, which we just discussed in the last slide, with arms of eight equal length. Each arm has 2 points, alluding to the 8 points. The Beatitudes are found in Christ's message, his original Sermon on the Mount, which is the eight Beatitudes. Today's degree looks at the birth, the life, the death, the resurrection, and the ascension of Yahweh Shai, aka Jesus Christ, and has little to do with the Knights Hospitaller except by name and name association only. Now, the aforementioned birth, life, death, and this is the best picture I could find out of our ritual. I couldn't find any real pictures of the banners, so it is the crusades, the birth, life, death, ascension, and resurrection as set up in your commanderies. But we really want to dive a little deeper and talk about the baptism, transfiguration, crucifixion, resurrection, and ascension, which are all essentially the same things. Now, ascension itself in the Christian belief is the ascent of Jesus Christ into heaven on the 40th day. Let me say that again. Yahweh Shai ascended, Jesus ascended into heaven on the 40th day after his resurrection, right? And Easter being the reckoning and the first day, the Feast of the Ascension ranks with Christians. Easter is the Pentecost and the universality of this observance. Now, just so you remember, especially those that are on here that are Knights Templars, when you took your obligation, right? You said you'll walk the distance of 40 miles barefoot on frozen tundra. Does that sound familiar? And it's just ironic that Jesus ascended on the 40th day. But you said you'll walk the distance of 40 miles barefoot on frozen tundra to aid a fellow Sir Knight. Think about that and just let that ponder for a second as we conclude, as we get into the rest of the slides. Now, the life and death of Jesus Christ in 1 Corinthians 15 and 22. For as in Adam all die, even so in Christ shall be made alive. Now, why do I mention Adam? Now we have two distinctly different, well, they're the same, but they're different flavors of the same picture here. The one on the right is pretty vivid, right? Pretty descriptive. But I want you to pay attention to the picture on the left. Now, if you look at the picture on the left, you would notice a skull at the bottom. You see a skull at the bottom with the bones on the side? They should be crossbones. Different images depict crossbones. Well, we'll get into what that skull actually is here very, very shortly. So Jesus was born about 4 BC in the small town of Bethlehem, 6 miles, give or take, from the ancient Jewish capital of Jerusalem. He lived only 33 years, as has been well chronicled, before being executed by the Roman authorities at the request of the Jewish leadership. Now, Seth is the son of Adam, took one of the fruits of the tree of life that he got from his parents, right? And there's a story that says that the tree, because there's just a cross that he was hung on. There's some different variations. Some say it was a tree of life that Jesus was hung on. Either way, right? Seth, the son of Adam, took fruits from the tree of life, got from his parents, and planted in nearby Eden. The fruit grew to be this tree again. As we fast forward, where Jesus was hung, right? The skull at the bottom of the cross, if we look at that picture on the left, the skull at the bottom of the cross is meant to represent Adam. You said Adam. Yes, Adam, that Adam. Adam and Eve, the first man. That's why 1 Corinthians 15 and 22 says, "For as in Adam all die, even so in Christ shall be made alive." In his letters, the Apostle Paul argues that Christ is the new Adam. So history would tell us that the foot of the tree of life is the head of Adam. The head of Adam is at the foot of the tree of life. Hence, Adam's skull was transported. And then there was a conversation I got into with a brother in Texas. I did some research. Adam's skull was actually transported on Noah's Ark. So that's a whole nother lecture. But just for context, again, if in 1 Corinthians 15 to 22, and then you can see in the picture here that is Adam's skull, right? And then we look at death. Death came in the world through Adam's disobedience, obviously, when he ate the forbidden fruit. But his son, again, transported those fruits, those seeds from the tree of life, planted it in Adam's skull, and they grew and manifested themselves into this tree. So it was very interesting to go through that dialogue. All right. We talk about the death. Right? Jesus' life and teachings attract thousands at his side. And just like I talked about the quote from Kobe Bryant earlier, just your manufacturing, your effect on people is not really felt until you're gone, and that's kind of where we're at with Jesus right now. He's about to fulfill his destiny as he's thinking about his life, because he started his ministry at the age of 30, did it for 3 years, died at 33, or was crucified at 33. His followers were in Galilee, while he supported in Jerusalem, which is a hornet's nest of opposition. Let's just say that. And Sanhedrin, the leading council of the Jews at the time, most of them were unhappy with the new rabbi, that being Jesus, who was attracting such a big following, right? So we'll just call the Sanhedrin leadership, we'll call them haters for the sake of this conversation, right? So they felt some type of way that he was getting all of this attention, right? As they thought about that and got in the feelings, he challenged the old order. Jesus did. That was what he was here to do. And then in Israel in 30 AD was part of the Roman Empire. Jesus died at 3 p.m. Again, we talk about the numerology. You got to really, this is a play on numerology here. He died at 3 p.m., which is in Jewish denomination or Jewish calendar, Jewish time, was at 9 p.m. because their calendar started at 6 in the morning. So you can go 3 by 3. You can have a lot of different interesting parallels, but 9 is a divinely distinct number. Now, resurrection, if you're in the consistory, which a lot of you on here are, right, that manure or the candelabra behind Black Jesus should be mean something to you, because we're getting ready to do Easter sunrise service at some point here really, really soon. In Acts 13 to 38, Acts 13, 38 and 39, Paul declares, through Jesus, the forgiveness of sins is proclaimed to all, that everyone who believes in him is justified, something the law of Moses could not achieve. So Paul was a rebel, because remember, Paul was Saul. He formerly persecuted Christians and then got converted and got healed. All right, as a result, Jesus likely rose from the dead between sundown on Saturday and about dawn on Sunday, before Mary Magdalene reached the tomb. It's not surprising that the church has always followed this timeline. with the Easter visual service, that being sunrise service, and celebrating Jesus's resurrection. And we're thinking about his ascent, right? His ascension, birth, life, death, ascension, resurrection, then ascension. Him ascending back into heaven. And we know biblical history teaches us there was only a couple people, a few, which is debatable, that have ascended. He being one, and I believe Enoch being the other. Um, there was some other narrative, but we'll just say those two for the sake of conversation. Ascension in Christians believe, and we talked about that in the beginning, the ascension of Jesus Christ being he ascended on the 40th day. And then remember, Knights Templars, that you gave an oath 40 miles of frozen tundra. And these are the references. The one on the right I'll send out after this. The one on the left, you might recognize a couple of those names. Uh, they're pretty familiar. I know one of those guys. He's a knucklehead. One on the bottom. But that book will be released in May 1st, and so this is where the reference point has come from. And like I said, I'll send the Hoofbeats of Holiness, which is a hell of a read and a hell of a ode to Knights Templarism. So ends the short lecture, and we can now go into our Q&A, favorite part. Questions?
Yeah, unmute yourselves, gents. Or
Yeah,
raise
yeah.
your
This is
hand.
free. You know how we do it. After we do the lectures, free conversation, free smoke. Nobody? You were so
Okay.
overwhelmed, you were speechless.
No, no, big bro. It was kind of cool. All right. So now you said the 8 points of the cross.
hmm
So each point of that cross represented not only what you showed in the slide, but also the 8 religions.
Well, the eight oldest languages, and then there
Okay.
was some religious attributes, right, and then some just life lessons, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah, so this,
So
it's just we think about the allegory and masonry, right? You think about the meanings. I talked about loyalty, piety, frankness, bravery, glory and honor, contempt of death, helpfulness toward the poor and the sick, right? Because Knights Templar said out, they will relieve and protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Respect for the church. Right? These are meanings of that 8-pointed cross. Some deeper
okay.
meanings than we normally just talk about when we do a degree, which we should be more descriptive in how we go about those things.
I'll give you an imagery for you. So you take all those virtues per se. You see how they are with the imagery of that cross. They all
Mhm.
point inwards to the center. Goes
Absolutely.
back to the allegory of the point within the circle. So you take all those virtues, all those languages, all those religions, the
hmm
universality of things, and you internalize, you bring it back to the center. That makes the night more, noble.
hmm
Okay.
It never stops, man. The allegory and masonry is effervescent. It continues to grow. It continues to show us more things as we dive deep. And you always notice that all of these degrees, irrespective of their appendant body, point back to the symbolic lodge, whether that be in the numerical sense, whether that be in the metaphorical sense, whether that be in the religious sense. It's like I always says, masonry is just this beautiful story, but it's just told backwards. So we have to get the whole picture in order to work so we can see it, right? And if we only see a piece of it, it just doesn't make sense. It's like a puzzle on the table. If we dump a puzzle on the table straight out of the box, it just looks like chaos. But as we start to put those pieces together, forms a beautiful picture.
You mentioned in the slideshow the
Mhm.
imagery of crucifixion and how Adam's skull is there.
Mhm.
That could that allude to the allegory of the Alpha and Omega also through imagery because of the
Uh,
presence being there?
not as much, but it could, depending on how it was viewed or what perspective or what angle you're coming at. The biggest thing is that all of these years and we've seen this image of the crucifixion, and that skull has been there. We've never paid attention to that skull, and it was really impactful when I was in Texas, and the brother, we'll call him Mr. Nobody, right? Brother Wright. That's what he calls himself, Mr. Nobody. It's funny. Smart dude. And he asked me one question: how did Adam's skull get on Noah's Ark? And me being the scholar that I am, I went and I went research crazy, right? And it was crazy. And going back biblically and looking at it, and I was and traced it back, and I was like, wow, because that skull was actually ended up in Golgotha, because that's where Jesus was, that's where his body was hung at. So it was, the place of skulls. But the place of skulls, and we think about it in terms of, we only think about the story in Jesus, from Jesus' perspective, but we don't think about Adam's skull being there. So the head of Adam is at the foot of the tree of life, which is bananas and mind blowing to even think about.
Indeed, indeed, indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Y'all, there ain't no football. All of the good in AAC, well, in NAACP, NCAA games. I think Duke just went off. Y'all got no comments, man? Need some feedback, brothers. Comments, questions, concerns. I could have just said, "What's a BS?"
So I have a question, and I'm trying to untangle it. So, does Malta, Knights of Malta, is that the part that has to do with also Saint Andrew? Was he part of the Knights of Malta as well when this crusade happened, when they went from the Hospitallers? I may have it mixed up.
You do, because so the Knights of Malta, in a monastic fashion, and as we stated, predated the Knights Templars, but they were also linked with the Knights Hospitallers, which we knew were the medics essentially. But they had their own individual order, and the Knight of Saint Peter, I believe, is what one of the names that they were called.
Without getting too controversial, could that be the confusion?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It's really weird during the Crusades. I get the question, but the question in and of itself is hard to answer. Because there's so many different publications that say that even have the Knights of Malta not predating Knights Templars. That's why I said the Hoofbeats of Holiness is a pretty good read, and it gives you pretty detailed, uh, timely information on the timeline of Knights Templars, Knights of Malta, and so on and so forth. So Keith, I'll send that, and then we can have a further conversation about it.
Randall, it's Trahan.
What up, Trey?
Question.
So
All right. They always said, you just explained the skulls, Adam's skull, and it's good to know. Is it safe to say when we go into the Knights Temple, we go into the asylum, and that skull is up on the Bible or coffin, however people have it set up? Could we say that's Adam's skull? Some always say it was Jock Delay skull. So
biblically, we can attribute this to either Adam, but remember, the Knights Templars is a Christian order. So in America, we would fashion that as Jesus' skull.
right.
But you can trace these images back, and then understanding, Seth, the son of Adam, um, planted those seeds from the tree of life. So again, the other interesting parallels is that where Jesus was actually hung was the tree of life that Adam ate from. So then that's why the Apostle Paul chimed in First Corinthians. It's like, hey, listen, this is the new Adam. So to your point, and to your question, theoretically, yeah, but in America, we're gonna say no, that's Jesus' skull, and then some. We even says Jacques de Molay, even in the consistory. We can even argue that in the consistory that is the head of Adam on the altar, if we really want to be technical.
I mean, that was a good find when you found that, because now you make people go and research and look for. You know, sometimes
Yeah,
we just take stuff and we don't want to look for, but that was a good find because that was the first I heard that also.
yeah, yeah. It threw me for a loop, man, because Julius is a pretty smart dude, and we've conversed before a few years back on some different things. But when he hit me with that, I had to take one of them tactical pauses. I'm like, man,
Gee,
that's a crazy question. So
Got a,
yeah,
well,
man.
I got a question too with that segue. Could that be the confusion, like I said, between Knights Malta and the establishment of this degree to where
Mhm.
um it's mentioned some well in places in Scottish Rite where there are quote unquote knights. Could that be the place where they may have gone to or established themselves in that gap per se
It
between the formal establishment of Knights
that could
Templar?
that is probably very well the place because if you look at the 30th degree and you look at Knights Kadash, right? If you think about how they went off into Knights of St. Andrews and Knights of that could very well be. It's easily attributed to those things being connected, very connected, right? To the point where we have this skull and crossbones on the altar in the consistory, and nobody ever questions that. Me, right
Hmm.
away when I came on my knees, what is that? And then when I became a Knights Templar, got dubbed, even more curious. And once I found out, right, it was and then
Those
now
ob-
having this new information about Adam, I'm even further thinking that that could be something deeper than what we even thought.
those obligations do matter.
They do matter. And then that 40 miles, right? Then those interesting parallels. I am about numerology and those interesting parallels. He died on he ascended on the 40th day. Right there, we walk 40 miles on frozen tundra. Right. There's all these very interesting parallels. These allegories are always coming back. They're always coming back to home base. And even in
Not
that book, in our newest book, we break down the number 40 for about 3 pages. You'd be surprised at how much parallel
hmm.
and understanding the number 40 means biblically. Crazy.
I
So,
have a
Well,
question. This is Harris.
what's
Can you
up,
hear me?
sir? Yeah, I can hear you, sir.
I heard you say the skull of Jesus Christ. Where would one get the skull of Jesus Christ from?
I don't know, man. That was just
That's
a
kind of
thought.
far fetched. You know, it's going against a
It,
lot of my Christian beliefs. That
it is. It's a thought, right? We're brainstorming, spitballing. But the skull of Adam definitely is the mainstay of the conversation. The skull of Jesus Christ, yeah.
I can deal with that new information. But when you said the
Yeah.
skull of Jesus, I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, when you start introducing information that is I guess hidden because nobody goes look it up, then people start putting spin on it. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. Maybe misspoke a little bit. The skull of Jesus would be a lot far fetched, seeing how he ascended. That would be kind of a oxymoron, I guess.
Hey, Brother Randall, this is Brother Finney. Now, you said this is the skull of
Adam.
Adam, and that was transported by Noah. Is that what you're? And where did you get that research from?
It was Manly P. Hall's book, and I think around page 400 or something. I'll send a picture of it. I won't send the whole book because I don't have a PDF, but I'll send a picture of it and the reference to the page number.
Okay, yeah, I'd be interested to
Yeah,
look that up and run it against some of my
yeah.
resources that I have. Uh,
It'll take you down some rabbit holes. Trust me,
ye-
it'll take you down some rabbit holes. I was sitting here beating my head on this wooden table here. Yeah, it's crazy. It will
yeah,
definitely
because
take you down some rabbit holes.
yeah, because if you think of the time between Noah and Adam,
Hmm.
um, that and knowing that Adam died a natural death, he, yeah, I would be real
But
interested in
but but
how even
remember
his, yeah,
remember Seth, his son, planted those seeds, right? And again, they were planted in his skull, and just I'll send you the data. I'll send you the
yeah,
data.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, because first off, he couldn't get back to the tree of life because we know through
the flood.
scriptures
Hmm.
that the angels stood guard. That's why Adam and Eve couldn't get back in. So now I'm
Hmm.
real curious how his son got back in. So
Well, his
yeah,
son, yeah,
yeah,
his son in the genealogy, and if I tell people this, right?
yeah, because
Just kind of deviating. Look at the Hebraic genealogy, and you look back at the genealogy from Noah's, everybody, right, from Adam
Yeah.
all the way down,
I,
and it's crazy. It is. Matter of fact, Othello's on here. He gave me that map. That he brought a map, and so it helped me kind of put some dots together, if you will.
Yeah, because I have the genealogy from Adam to
Mm-hmm.
Christ,
Right.
uh, and and of course, like I said, if you go back into Genesis, there's no way. Well, at least for me, what I've in my research and biblical study, there's no way that Seth could have gotten back to the garden to grab any seeds, because you
Well,
know,
one would say yes, and some could say no. Just seeing how he was the direct descendant, there's again, it's
it,
one of those things where we can take this into a whole nother lecture series in and of itself, you know what I mean. And I'm almost curious almost willing to do that, just because it's so crazy. It
That's a
yeah,
really is.
spinoff right there. That's a spinoff for sure.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely a spinoff and a stretch, because if he wouldn't let the parents go back in, he surely wasn't letting the sons go back in, especially, we know between Cain and Abel, and then Seth coming as the
Hmm.
third child mentioned, so forth and so on. But that's enough of that for now.
Yeah, but then the
Thank you,
floods,
brother.
yeah, no problem. And then the floods too. You got to
Yeah.
take the floods into account. That's a whole nother dynamic which we didn't talk about, and so
Yes,
there's that.
sir. Yes,
there's
sir.
there's
'Cause-
that.
yeah, we as I said, there's, like I said, there's a lot of theoretical stuff that is not necessarily holds any water, but it's somebody's
Yeah,
thought, somebody's research. So, hey, man,
yeah.
let's as
Kendrick,
they say.
let's move on. Yeah, Kendrick Lamar said the rabbit hole goes deep, man.
Very much so.
It does. But nah, man, appreciate it. And I knew it was to spark some interest and conversation, and that's why I kind of put it in just as a metaphorical thought, right? I always want us to dig deeper than the surface. Let's look beyond just what we're looking at on the surface, and let's dig deeper. Uh, so when brothers ask, "What do you do and why do you do it?" You have a why, and you have an explanation of the why.
Excellent, excellent.
Like I
Yes,
said,
sir.
how do we tie this into the young brothers who are aspiring to be Sir Knights or that want to go towards Knights Temple? How do we use
So the
these
brothers, because
stories?
there's some brothers on here. I think for the most part, I think everybody on here is a nice temper. But if you are not, this is what I would absolutely 100% tell you, that the meaning of this degree is the uh, death, resurrection, and ascension, the five stages of life. But that's what the degree is really about. And you, as the candidate, go through that degree, and this is the lessons that you learn. And if you think about the information in these slides, if you got on early enough to see them, it depicted all of that. It depicted some of the allegory. So what I would tell you is that this is just a lesson in life, like the five stages of life. This is what this degree is. And this degree helps you, remember, Knights Templar is a very Christian monastic degree, very Christian oriented degree. And I know the parallels come, well, if I'm Muslim and I'm this, I can't get in all that because that's your religious belief. I'm just telling you what this degree is, not
Actually,
what we want it to be.
actually kind of reinforces it with those Beatitudes. Like I said, those
It
several
absolutely
religions.
that
So it
that
does
that
complement it.
yeah, the Sermons on the Mount, right? This is a very religious, a very Christian oriented degree, and there's no from the advent of the cross, whether that be a Maltese cross, a passing cross, right? And then those 8 points allude us right back to the Sermon on the Mount.
And didn't this is Harris again.
Hmm.
Didn't Paul land on that island of
He
Malta?
did. He
And
did.
that's where we get the sign from with the
He
snake.
did. He did when he shook the
Right. So
scorpion off.
that's
Absolutely.
pretty religious when you got the Apostle Paul on there.
Yeah, absolutely, right. And then that archipelago, right? That island contained three other different a group of islands, and the Apostle Paul was there. He did land there. And so it all points back and it makes sense religiously. But again, to Burley's question, what can you tell the person that's not a Knights Templar that this degree will give you a very religious, very Christian background on Freemasonry as a whole? Because Freemasonry goes into a lot of different segues and genres and not genres, different segues, different religious segues. But I can tell you that the Knights Templar is a very Christian-oriented degree that takes you right back to the Bible. No matter what you do, these degrees will take you right back to the Bible. So it was good. Now we got the last degree, which is a Knights Templar next month. We'll find somebody to knock that out. And then we're done with our entire series, gentlemen, from Royal Arch, Royal and Select, and Almost Knights Templar. So this is housed on YouTube for your brothers, your companions that seek further light in masonry. High priests, thrice illustrious masters, eminent commanders. You can share this knowledge with your brothers. They love it. They love their YouTube, right? They love their social media, the digital spaces. Share it.
Get the
Share
word
it,
out
share
for
it, share
sure.
it.
Get the word
Yep,
out.
for sure. What other questions, brothers? And by the way, man, I appreciate all of y'all. I think I know I'm not gonna speak for Brother, but I can say collectively that we appreciate y'all jumping on Sunday. Just going through this dialogue with us, going on this journey with us.
Yeah, it's definitely hear the different perspectives from brothers from around the country.
Mhm.
It definitely helps out with this journey and how to relate it to our young brothers in masonry that want to seek that further light. How do we get this information to them in a manner that they are receptive to it without judgment or question? Just reaffirm their beliefs or reaffirm what their notions may be, and keeping that knowledge flowing.
For sure. Mr. Finney, you came on mute. You had a question, sir?
No, I just wanted to say thank you. Appreciate it.
No doubt, man. No doubt. It was our pleasure. It's my pleasure to present today. Reverend Burris, how you doing, sir? Mr. Maxwell, sir, I know you got on a little bit later. How you doing, sir? Our sirs,
Good evening,
plural.
yeah, doing just great. Glad to be here. Good information and the end that I caught. Keep doing a great job as you're doing and spreading that knowledge. Continue to bless everybody with the knowledge.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to General Grand Conference and Grand Encampment as well. Seeing a lot of you there.
I have one thing that I like to say. I thought was very interesting.
Mhm.
The point of the 8 oldest languages. Now that was kind of mind blowing when you showed that slide. I said, "Whoa, that's my
Yeah.
favorite saying." And I was just like, um, man, that was quite interesting. So just had to put that out there.
Yeah, it was again, just like I told you guys when we started, the research took me down some metaphoric rabbit holes. And as I was looking at some of these things, and just looking at some of the 8 oldest languages like Hebrew, Tamil, Sanskrit, Greek, Mandarin Chinese, Arabic, Basque, and Navajo, we don't talk about that stuff. And I think we do ourselves a disservice by not discussing those things. And the one at the very top, ironically, was Hebrew, which we can take that into a whole nother conversation. When we're talking about Mr. Finney and myself, we're talking about the Hebraic origin from Adam all the way down, given our actual lineage, if you will, and our genealogy of who we are. In history, in biblical history, we were black. We were black. Our skin was brown. From
Yes,
the
sir.
Hebrews to the Phoenicians, our skin was brown. And if you notice, I was very intentional to put a black images of Yahweh Shai, aka Jesus. And again, this is all biblically stated. There's no shade. It's just this is what the Bible tells us. It's not what I'm just making up just because it's a Sunday and I don't have nothing else to do.
No,
Appreciate it.
the greatest secrets are written in books. The thing is,
Yeah.
they describe themselves, and people describe them as the way that they are depicted right now. So yeah,
Mhm.
those truths are being unearthed by the day.
Yeah.
Know
Yeah.
thyself. That's what this is supposed to be about. Know thyself.
Hey, I didn't make up the list. Right at the very top of the list, Hebrew, one of the 8 oldest languages. I can't make that up. That was- I didn't make that up. I just
Right, right.
transcribed it. You know what I mean? So again, brothers, this is, to your point earlier, Burley, this is why we do this, right? These collective conversations with different thoughts and different mindsets from across the country give us a collective thought to understand. We can go back into our organizations, our commanderies, councils, chapters, whatever, what have you, and have these discussions. And oh, by the way, we can also have these discussions in our subordinate lodges because our numbers in New York, right, are dying just like everybody else. So we can use this knowledge to help our numbers as well, right? And we can use this digital platform and this digital footprint to spam out to the younger brothers to get them interested because they want knowledge.
Well, Dr. Randall,
What's up, Mo?
how you feeling today?
Oh man, I can't call. If I had your hand, I'll cut mine off. What's up?
Well, shoot, if I had your hand, I'll cut my feet, arms,
Don't do it, man.
and everything off.
Save all them
But you know,
limbs, man.
I'm looking at the participant level. 23 brothers,
Uh-huh.
and my right grand thrax illustrious master Carl Albritton, which is on right now.
Yeah.
One thing I love what he said. When we went through the Blue Lodge, and then we started going up in the ranks of York Rite, Scottish Rite. We always say that we seek more light masonry. And then when you were saying about the young brothers, I've been in masonry not that long, probably a little over 22 years. And, what I see is these young brothers will come in, um, every night or every large meeting, it's the regular sick and the stress or, you know, and I get that. But like he said, the Blue Lodge is the face of masonry. Our Grand Lodges is the face of masonry because nobody's going to come in off the street going into Holy Royal Lodge, Royal and Select, Knights Templar, Scottish Rite. But, in these other houses, we notice that they're doing the same things as they do in the Blue House. The sick and the stress, or the things you go through as far as the business level. And I believe that these houses needs to be more targeted on more light masonry. I know we still have to go through our protocol, but it should be teachings. And a lot of these brothers, they ask for more light masonry, but like I said, I only see 23 people. Now I sent this thing out to multiple platforms.
It goes to 200. Yeah, it goes to 230 people. The invite does.
Yes, sir. And I sent this. I always send it out. I break my neck to send it out to everybody. Say, hey, I even just sent it again, saying, hey, but I never see the brothers on here. But they always craving and wanting to have knowledge. But you never see these brothers participate. So that's the confusion that I get. Why? Why? You want more light masonry, but you don't participate.
Well, here's the thing, and Mr. Albritton, it'll be on later tonight. I'll drop the link once it downloads to YouTube, sir. But Mo, to your point, it's the why. Like, so we're talking about just the Bible today, right? Faith without works is dead. Let me say that one more time. Faith without works is dead. Just because you ask for something doesn't mean you really want it. If you want it, your why is gonna delineate and be stronger than anything you can manifest. And that why is gonna push you to do something real, like click a button and get on and just sit there wherever you are in the world and learn. It's free. But what's your why? So, I get it, right? The young brothers are distracted by whatever. Older brothers everybody has something. We all got something. But at the end of the day, right? Study to show thyself worthy. And I know Reverend Burris will love this. This is all biblically written. This is the Bible. Study to show thyself approved. Faith without works is dead. Basic instructions before leaving earth. Pick up the Bible. Pick up the Bible.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I always like the ground floor of King Solomon's Temple. I always tell people, do not forget the ground floor of King Solomon's Temple, because the way up is down. But I always love that in our Blue Lodge. Let it not be supposed that you have here labored in vain and stretched your strength for naught.
Yeah.
Your brothers go 20, 30 years laboring in vain and spending their strength for nothing, not gaining nothing. But it's their fault.
Yeah.
It's their fault,
Yeah.
Seek ye the kingdom of God first, and then everything else will be added unto you. He give you the nuggets, but we
He
don't
gave
pick
it
them
to you.
up.
He gave
You
you the
look at it
game.
and say, "Oh, yeah, yeah, he give it to you."
He gave you the game, but you gotta want to play the game, right? Just because I put you in a uniform don't make you a player,
That's
Yeah.
right.
He said
right?
That's
that,
right.
man.
So here's the thing, man. I'm gonna read 1 Corinthians 13:13. Right? Three things will last forever: faith, hope, and love. And guess what the greatest of these is? Love. If you don't
Love.
have love for this, you're not gonna be on here.
Mm-hmm.
You're not gonna be on here. It, it's just like what Kobe Bryant said. Like sometimes your value isn't seen until your absence is felt. And then we doing a eulogy for you. And then we draping the altar for you. But it's too late. Bro, you gotta want to do this. What's your why? What's your damn why?
Mm-hmm.
You gotta you gotta want to be on here. You gotta want to put these lectures together. You gotta want to do this research. You gotta want this knowledge.
That's called passion.
It's called passion. It's
But
called it's called a quarter cup of gas, is what I used to tell people that work for me, and I still do. A quarter cup of give a shit. That's what it is. Let's just be honest. I said
Mm-hmm.
that's all you need in life is just a quarter cup of gas. One quarter cup of gas. That's it. Nothing more. You don't need a full tank, half a tank. Quarter cup,
Right.
quarter tank.
and
Care.
Yeah.
Not
it's
a
so
that's not a noble concept.
it's so riveting to hear this because this is a conversation I just had with a few brothers.
Mm,
Um, so you this conversation is giving me a whole sermon that I could preach on, but going back to the ground floor and the foundations to masonry, one of the scriptures is Matthew 7:7, where it says, "Seek
Yes.
and
hmm
you
Amen.
shall find, knock and the door shall be open to you." If you're not at the door to knock, how you gonna get it? That's first, and you got to be seeking to be able to get what you're asking for. But on and on with that is, I pushed this out and I said to people, "Hey, it's free, and you could do it from the comfort of your own home," because everybody complains about, "Oh, I'm out this amount of time, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing the other." And when you get free knowledge for free, for free,
hmm
and you can't show up for that, that lets me know where your tenacity is. But they'll be the
Well,
first. But they'll be the first one to stand up to say, "Oh man, I love masonry, I love York Rite, I love Templars, and this is and this." And you go to ask them a question or something like that, there's a whole different story. So, yes, we could go around robbing about that all day. But I
mhm.
just want to say thank you. I met Dr. Randall in November at in Maryland at our York Rite weekend, and I haven't missed one yet. And he's been constantly feeding me. He's actually sparked the research in me to do more research and improve myself in masonry. Right? That's
Yes,
from the
sir.
Appreciate you.
foundation. Right? That's from the
Yes, sir.
foundation as well. Right? So
hmm
I appreciate that, and all I do is I try to lead by example by my walk. I share the information because when I go, it can't, it's not going to be out there, and it's going to go with me. So my whole plight and my walk and this whole time in masonry is to try to make it better than what I found it, and maybe inspire another brother. And that's all I have to say. This is brother Keith. That's it.
I appreciate you, man. And Brother Finney said this earlier, right? He was talking about just the Blue House and our work not being in naught. But just remember, we talked about the 8 Beatitudes, and one of my favorite ones is, the meek shall inherit the earth. And why do I say that? The humility, because that's the first lesson we learned in masonry. We lost our ability to be humble. We gave our left shoe not as humiliation, but as for humility, to be humble, to be servants, because Jesus didn't want to die. He did it because he was humble. He was a servant. He was a servant leader. He removed obstacles for us to grow and have choices. But we don't want to do the hard stuff. I was telling somebody yesterday, this is a microwave generation. They want to pop it in for 2 minutes and be done and have a full meal. No, you got to season the meat. You got to marinate the meat. You got to, cut the vegetables up. You got to do work. Faith without works is dead.
I got an idea that just popped in my head. What does what what does living like Christ look like in the 21st century, specifically 2025? How many Jesuses do you know? And how many Brutuses or do you support?
It's a loaded question, but a good question nonetheless.
No, think about it. If we're using today's, today's culture and lifestyle, and we're trying to apply biblical, principles to try to either sway it to the correct way or sway it to light, how do we do that? Using these principles with our young brothers to teach them the right way, the way to light, the way to the path of righteousness, the way
The
Christ.
the only thing we could do is give it to them, right? The Bible says, "Lead a child in the way they should go, and they will never go astray." Now, it may not look pretty, right, as you giving it to them. And my mom's a preacher, so I can tell you, it may not look pretty all the time. Some things I've done, she just shook her head. But at the end of the day, you're gonna come right back because it's already in you. It's manifested itself in you, like those seeds that were planted in Adam's skull. It manifests itself in you. It'll come back. It's just a matter of when. But we got to still plant the seeds. Like Mo is planting the seeds. You're planting the seeds. I'm planting the seeds. They'll grow. We just don't know when, but they'll grow. A
We
little
just
bit
got to
of
tend
water
to that.
here. Yeah, a
We
little
just
bit
got
of
to
water
tend to
here. This
tend
is
it
the
to that
water.
garden.
This is the
Tend it to
water.
that garden.
What did you and I say when we started this months ago? We said we want to do a whole series to give people a digital footprint to be able to have access to the whole series. By the grace of God, we're almost done with the whole series. That's every single house in New York, right? That's a
Yeah.
blessing. Whether it was, there's times there's been 20 people on here, there's times there's been 60 people on here. Doesn't matter. I told y'all when we started, if it was just the 9 of us that were on here, we were gonna do the lecture because it's going on YouTube. Didn't
Called
matter.
tending. That's called tending to the garden.
That's it.
That's yet another
That's it.
biblical principle.
That's it, man. I'm gonna stop preaching, man. I know Reverend Bird's like, man, this dude. I didn't. I got another preacher on here, and I'm not no preacher, man. Go ahead, Reverend Burst. I see you come off.
I was just laughing at you. I could have stayed home today and let you take care of it for me this morning. That's all.
Nah, man. I definitely I love hearing your sermons, and they impact me in a good way every time I hear a sermon from you. So I appreciate you.
Indeed.
Much
Indeed.
Thank you, God.
I appreciate you. But brothers, man, our time is running short here. I appreciate the ones that did get on here that have a solid why. Trey, I always appreciate you, man, for the knowledge. Brother Maxwell, Brother Finney, everybody, man. One of my mentors, Othello, Brother Cooks. It's a plethora of people on here, man. Brother Harris, Right Worshipful Harris. Um, you know, both Lawrence Harris and my guy, Andrew Harris. So again, one of the district deputies is on here. We're gonna do this again next month. And it may be 20 people, and it may be 5 people, or it may be 3 people. But guess what? We're gonna plant the seeds next month. And then that garden is gonna grow metaphorically because we have, by the grace of God, finished the entire series. And there's not too many people out there that have done the series with its digital footprint. So we're proud of that. So we appreciate y'all giving y'all most valuable asset, which is your time. So thank you.
Thank you.
And if there's no parting words, man, we'll leave the room open. But we are officially done, brother. You can go ahead and stop record.